Now Bowser is a bit crazy in a lot of the Super Mario games. A great example of this is seen in the first Super Mario Galaxy title, where he blows up an entire town. Clearly, he can be a bit nuts, to say the least. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because he also ended up adding literal bombs to his ranks. I'm talking about the Bob-ombs, of course, who are living, moving mechanical bombs that are generic enemies from Super Mario Bros. 2 onward. They tend to explode, flashing red and sometimes making beeping sounds before they do. So these beings are pretty terrifying, and we don't even know where they came from. They were just there all of a sudden. However, a long time ago I did an evolution of video on this enemy, and I would say it's about time to give them some love once again. And we are going to do this by covering the 5 best ones. Now, let's dive right in. Number 5. Now, to be honest, there's nothing subtle about a freaking bomb walking up to you and then exploding right in front of your face. However, Nintendo did try to make it more interesting, and they did this by giving these living bombs a new way of entering the battlefield, from above. I think you already know who I'm talking about. The well-known para-bombs, who are part of the paratroopers of the Koopa army. And yes, that's a literal thing. They are bob-ombs with parachutes that appear in several Mario games, and what they do is descend slowly from the sky, and once they land, they just act like normal bob-ombs. So in general, their behavior is not really different. However, they do arrive in a surprising way, which players didn't expect when first seeing this enemy. All of a sudden, they're dropping down from the sky in order to harm you. And this enemy is certainly one of the most dangerous, to be honest. Just think about it, it's a freaking bomb coming down from the sky. However, there's also another thing that becomes a lot harder as soon as these guys come falling down. Because, let's be honest, Mario tends to do that a lot after all when dodging enemy attacks and getting past obstacles. So in a way, this enemy is really effective. It's subtle, but for sure gets the job done. Although, since it's a 2D world, you can see them coming. Making something truly surprising in such a game is hard after all, but this one does a sort of decent job at least. Number 4. Now, our next type on this list is sort of similar to the previous one we talked about. However, at the end of the day, this one is way more dangerous. The tail bob-ombs, who appear in Super Mario 3D Land. And unlike ordinary ones, they have the ability to descend slowly from the sky. However, it is different from the para-bombs, because they are not able to stand upright, and remain sitting down on the ground in the spot they land at and explode quickly. Now you can defeat these by running into them while they're sitting on the ground, while jumping on them doesn't do a whole lot. Now their strategy is simple, falling from the sky and landing on the player, or at least getting close when they self-destruct. To be honest, they're super similar to the previous enemy I covered, but in my opinion, they do a better job. These enemies are seen in a 3D world after all, while the other one is only really seen in 2D titles, and I gotta say, this stuff works better in 3D. You don't really see them coming most of the time. They can come flying in from some weird angle and totally surprise you. That's why they work so well even though they're so similar. They are a huge threat even if they miss you, since they explode quite quickly. So I think in practice, they do a better job, especially in places where there isn't a whole lot of space. Because if they land there, you have nowhere to go, or need to make a quick decision which could be your end. In general, I like these more for obvious reasons. Number 3. Now, when I mention the bob-omb enemy, everyone thinks of bombs, explosions, and danger. However, sometimes that's not really the case, because there are also a couple of types that do try to harm you, don't get me wrong, but they don't actually explode, and can potentially be helpful even. And a great example of this is the weird-looking Chakyas, who serve a completely different role compared to all the others in the bob-omb family. They are a large purple version of bob-ombs found in Super Mario 64, and all they do is patrol a small area. But all of this changes when Mario is finally in range. Then they will charge towards him in an attempt to pick him up and throw him in a random direction, similar to the King Bob-omb boss seen in this title. And surprisingly enough, you can actually defeat this being by picking it up from behind and throwing it. causing the enemy to explode, which not a lot of people know. Now, most of the time, as soon as you see these guys, you run, because you usually find them near a cliff or edge of a platform, so they would want to throw you off from there. So they are certainly placed in locations where getting grabbed by them is going to have terrible consequences. Although if you really put in some effort by mashing the A button or moving the stick around, you can escape from them. Clearly, this enemy is quite different from your normal bob-omb, being there to wipe out all your platforming progress as well as hurt you. But sometimes they can be useful if they throw you the right way, although that is extremely rare. But personally, I like them because they do something truly new. And while they can be annoying, their tactics are effective, and this makes them feared, which also makes them a badass. The fact that they can wipe out a lot of your progress makes them good enemies in a game like Super Mario. Number 2. Alright, now we're getting to the weirder types that I like, and the one we are going to talk about now is actually not an enemy. They are there to help Mario out, and fight Bowser as well as his forces in every way they can. And surprisingly enough, they're still part of the bob-omb species. The group of creatures I'm talking about are the buddies, and they have a distinct pink or red color, as well as a silver-colored cap on their head instead of the usual fuse. This already shows off that they are pacifists and have a peaceful nature overall, since they can't really explode. And because of all of this, they started their own group and team up with Mario in a lot of the worlds. Now the only thing they really do is open cannons for Mario, which you can then use to fly through the air, which does play a big role in a lot of the levels, to be honest. I mean, I will be honest, they don't do a whole lot. But in the end, I like them because it's fun to have a friendly race in Mario games. I'm also a huge fan of the penguins and bees seen in Super Mario Galaxy, since they help with building a story in the worlds they are seen in. For example, these friendly bob-ombs have a long-standing rivalry with the evil bob-ombs, and this was the first time both groups were at war. And Bob-omb Battlefield is a great example of this. Here we get to see this war play out in the entire world. In general, it helps build a scenario and story, which makes it more fun to go through the place in my opinion. Every now and then, Nintendo will do something like this in their worlds, and when they do, I almost always love it. So that's basically my reason for liking them so much. And of course, they're adorable as well. Number 1. Now we finally get to the best of the best, and I gotta be honest, this isn't really an enemy, but actually a boss. So of course he has a big role in the game. The mighty King Bob-omb, who you need to fight in Super Mario 64. Wait, now that I think about it, this video does make it quite obvious that Nintendo did a lot of fun stuff with this enemy in Super Mario 64. Huh, interesting. Anyways, when looking for this monster, you first go up a mountain, and when you're up there, the fight begins. All you have to do is run around to the back of him, pick him up, and toss him 3 times. After this, he will give up and hand over the Power Star. And funny enough, after this, the Bob-omb body at the beginning of the level will express gratitude. Now, while this boss is fun and all, it's actually disappointing in a lot of ways because the fight is incredibly basic. That's why this spot on the list is actually for the King Bob-omb of the DS remake, since that battle is a lot better. Here Yoshi has to grab the bob-ombs that are thrown at him with his tongue and spit them back at him, while if you're any of the other characters, you will have the same fight as in the original. Personally, I like this new battle in the remake a lot more, because it's harder as well as a more active fight, because in general, getting around the guy and grabbing him is pretty easy. However, in the remake, it is a little bit harder, but still not super hard to hit him, but it's for sure way more fun to do. Aside from that, it's more fitting with the actual character. Although I will say if you mess up once and get hit, you can get stuck in a nasty situation where you're bombarded with bombs while getting up every time, which can make it a surprisingly difficult fight. So I think this is a huge improvement over the one seen in the original, who is still okay, but not better than the remake version for sure. And that's sadly enough where our video ends. You now know which bob-ombs I like the most, and funny enough, the best one is the king of them all. Although I gotta say that it's kinda sad that he was only seen in Super Mario 64 games. It was quite a fun character after all and the fight wasn't bad. But after this, Nintendo only put him in Mario Party games, which is a bit of a bummer to be honest. But hey, we at least got the boss fight with him in Mario Kart DS, which was pretty good to be honest. But I would have wanted more. But, sadly enough, that's not the case. Thanks, Nintendo. However, before we really end this video, don't forget to check out the evolution of video I did on the bob-ombs in the upper right corner. It might be an old video, but man oh man, it's still great. And also, be sure to subscribe, then you won't miss a thing.